All right, everyone, welcome to another session of Talks with Sato, the spaces/podcast that we host weekly with the Money on Chain community. Every week at this same time, we bring you different guests that are involved in the world of Bitcoin. Today, we're going to talk with Isaiah Jackson, the author of Bitcoin and Black America, an advisor for the Yzer platform, which is an educational platform to earn Bitcoin while you learn about Bitcoin. So, first of all, Isaiah, thank you for joining us. And I'm very much looking forward for this conversation.
Oh yeah, glad to be here. I appreciate the invite, and yeah, glad to be here speaking about Bitcoin and education.
All right, great. I think the best thing would be to, if you can start by giving us a brief introduction about you and your work. I think that's going to
Sure,
be best.
sure. So I've been in the industry coming up on 10 years now in a couple weeks. So been in Bitcoin since 2013, and my background, I was in IT, and I did a little bit of teaching at the high school level. But with teaching in the public space, there wasn't really much opportunity to move up, and I found Bitcoin and learned as much as I could about it, and did all the during the crazy times of Silk Road and a lot of Mount Gox, a lot of crazy times. I basically was just learning about Bitcoin, teaching myself mining, trading, and things like that, and learning about money, the history of money, and at that point in 2017, after a few years, I started the Gentleman of Crypto, which is a daily show, educational show that we have with over 1,100 episodes, and started teaching people up and down the East Coast, also consulting companies, mostly small businesses. And from that point, that's been my life, is educating about Bitcoin, and it's been 6 years now. But during that time period, I wrote Bitcoin and Black America, did the book tour, and also started the Bitcoin summer camp as well, teaching kids in Miami, Charlotte, and other places. And most recently, advisor of Get Wiser, like you stated. So yes, that's been my life so far, teaching people about Bitcoin, trying to get people off of the fiat scam that we've all experienced during our lifetime.
Wow, yeah, seems like you've been all in for a very long time.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that moment. Like, when did you first become aware of Bitcoin, and when did you decide to go all in and start with all these shows, the books, the summer camps, and all this stuff?
Mhm. So when I first learned in 2013, I got pretty lucky. The first person I ever heard talking about Bitcoin was Max Kaiser. And I think Max can convince anybody about Bitcoin. Honestly, I was just lucky enough to hear him first. And on that was RT report back then. I learned about Bitcoin from him, saw how it worked. And when I read the white paper, it's like a light bulb went off that, man, somebody finally fixed the money problem. Because not too long before that, I had read The Creature of Jekyll Island, like a year or two before that. And I saw how messed up our education system was, financial system was. And I was in college during the last recession, like 2008, 2009. So it was like going from broke to broker. I was like, oh my goodness, what's happening? I didn't understand money. So once I started reading that and started learning about how our financial system works, Bitcoin came along and it convinced me. And I've been all in pretty much from day one as far as learning, but as far as business and teaching and doing videos, I was pretty scared at first to teach about it because it's so much to learn. Anybody that knows about Bitcoin is very deep rabbit hole to go down. It involves cryptography, philosophy, history of money, history of cypherpunk movement, so many different moving parts. I really didn't start teaching full time until 2017. But even then, every day still learning new stuff. That's how I got started. And what convinced me was just the freedom that's associated with Bitcoin. That we created a currency from scratch. That's fucking awesome, man. It's amazing that I'm here to live about it, live to see it, and live to talk about it, and be able to teach others about it so that they can also free themselves and we can move forward in the future.
Yes, wonderful. I think your story resonates a lot with many people. in the Bitcoin space, we were all attracted by the promise of having a better financial system.
Hmm.
And once you see it and once you believe in it, it's very hard not to want to put all your energy into
Right.
building this new system, right?
Hmm. Oh yeah, yeah. As people say, you get bit by the Bitcoin bug, and once you go down that rabbit hole, you can't unsee a lot of the stuff that you learn about. So, yeah, I'm here for life, going down with the ship, no matter what happens. So.
Love it, love it. Yeah. For myself, I was born in Argentina, and all the economic struggles that we've been through seems like the country has been in one giant financial crisis after the next.
Hmm.
And for us, yeah, uh, as soon as Bitcoin appears, we saw it as a way to hopefully put an end to this constant cycle of crisis after crisis.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's one thing too is countries like Argentina, others like Venezuela, Zimbabwe, others that have experienced massive inflation. They see Bitcoin as a way for freedom. I think in America we used to get spoiled and look at Bitcoin as just an option, whereas in places like Argentina, where you grew up, and Nigeria, other places, it's a way to survive. Like you actually need Bitcoin. So I'm always glad to meet people from other countries that use Bitcoin. Show these spoiled Americans like, hey, this is something that's global and everybody needs it.
Yes, yeah, that is quite true. I am based in Australia at the moment, and it's a very different relationship that people have with Bitcoin in Argentina and over here. We recently had one of the founders of the biggest Bitcoin community in Zimbabwe, and it was very interesting to hear their like what is happening over there and how they see Bitcoin, and it is quite different for them. That they can't get money in and out of the country, so for them Bitcoin is like a complete game changer in that respect.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I wanted to ask you about first about your book. Like, what is it that you were trying to? What message were you trying to get out with your book? And if you can speak to us a little bit about that.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So the inspiration behind the book was that when I was teaching about Bitcoin, one of the things that I noticed, the media, they do a great job of building a narrative that Bitcoin was just for white frat bros who buy Lambos and whatever, degenerates. And they mastered as that, and dudes with hoodies on living in their mom's basement, or shadowy super coders, whatever the verbiage they used to use in the media. And I used to laugh all the time and say, Bitcoin is for everybody. There's nothing keeping you out of it. So what I wanted to do with the book was basically make sure that in my own community, in the Black community, Black American community, that we realize Bitcoin is for us too. And I think not just race, but religion or country or whatever group that you're in, whatever tribe that you're a part of, Bitcoin is going to be a part of your life at some point. So you need to learn about it. And it's better if you're early so that you can take advantage of some of the innovation that's happening and free yourself from this system that has basically, if you're not in the top of the top elites, they fuck all of us over. That's why I wrote the book. I wanted to make sure that some of the issues that were unique to the Black American community, I was able to write about it, how Bitcoin can solve it, discuss some of the historical things that have happened, but also focus on future solutions. So that's why the first book came out, and the second book will be coming out as well to discuss these things and stay solution based and help people who may not have thought that Bitcoin was for them, make them realize it is. It's for everybody.
Oh, that is very interesting. I didn't know you were writing a second book.
Yes, absolutely. Actually already written. It was actually held back by some publishers, but yes, it will be a second version with all new chapters. And if the first version was like 100 level, the second version is like a 200 level course about how Bitcoin can help in the Black community. So yes, that will be coming out very soon.
All right, that's wonderful. When you put it out, let
Mhm.
us know, and we will inform the community. The community.
Absolutely, we'll do.
Yes, hopefully we can help you. So, what has been the reception of your book and your message so far?
It's been great. I wrote it just for people, a small group of people, I would say, as far as I thought it would have a cult following, people would know about it, but not something that would be pretty huge. And it ultimately did get big with the help of people like Jack Dorsey and Max Kaiser helping me out, being able to read the book and recommending it. And the reception has been pretty great. Th- There's people that disagree, of course, but it always comes back to the same thing. It's like, hey, I'm not here to convince you anymore. Satoshi said, he was like, I can't convince you at this point. He's like, I'm here to teach people who want to be taught. So the reception for the book has been great. I did the first book tour all out of pocket. And then the second book tour for the second book, actually, if you visit my Twitter, the pin tweet, raising money for that one for the second book tour, and the reception's been great. Been able to travel around the world, speak about it, and people get it at this point. Early on, but it's still a little bit of doubt with Bitcoin. But I think with the things we've seen in the financial market, I think everybody, and then plus big companies like BlackRock coming out and saying it, I think people have given up on the okay, Bitcoin it doesn't work. They've moved towards the okay, now how do I use it? And it's wide open for education. The book's been great. It's helped. I believe a lot of people realize what Bitcoin can be used for, and pushed out some of the media garbage that has infiltrated some people's minds. So I think it's done a good job so far.
All right. Cool. Yes,
Mhm.
I, I definitely hope it can help to dispel some of the negative and unfounded criticism that Bitcoin faces daily.
Yeah,
I have
all the
pinned
time.
your I pinned your tweet to your pinned tweet to the spaces so people can find it there.
Perfect.
We just have a few people that requested the mic, but they're gone now, so I'm not sure. Anyway, we shall continue. So you wrote the book, you put out the book, you're now writing the second one. The reception has been so far great,
Mhm.
which is good. So what is happening for you in the say uh, in the foreseeable future? What are you mostly focused on at the moment?
Oh yeah. So like I said before, Bitcoin education is something I've pretty much pushed for my entire life. This is what I'm dedicated to. Focusing on helping get wiser. If you checked out, I believe you stated that earlier, Wiser, the Bitcoin financial app, being able to earn Bitcoin while you learn about it. We're trying to get that in colleges and high schools, getting it in the curriculums, as well as the everyday person who wants to learn about Bitcoin. If you downloaded it, YZER, if you download the app, you can earn Satoshi just for learning about it. If you see the type of learning that you can get in the curriculum, being able to gamify it and make it easy to learn for younger kids, we got to start, in my mind, also in the second book, I write about this. We got to start thinking about the next generation because who are we doing this for, really? Of course, we're building, but I can promise you there's some 14-year-old kid that's going to build something that makes Bitcoin go crazy. I want to be one of the people that help teach that, and that's one of the things that we're doing with the app as far as education. I'm very focused on that. The book tour, the Bitcoin Black America book tour. I got to tell you, man, being able to go out and meet people with different Bitcoin groups around the country, meetup groups, different organizations and conferences is amazing. This second book tour, I really want to make sure it's more international. Being able to go to places like Ghana, South Africa, going to the Caribbean, going to South America, talk to some people from Cuba and Peru, Brazil as well, and hopefully Argentina and other places like that. Just being able to get the message out there because it- time is of the essence at this point. You got to have a sense of urgency. So that's definitely something I'm focused on for the last few months of this year, going into next year. And then the third biggest thing I would say I have going right now is the Bitcoin summer camp, which we do every summer, along with the book tour at the end of it to culminate. It'll be the Bitcoin summer camp as well, which will be in Miami, but we will have a way for people to learn online as well. And we're looking to spread to other cities. And when I'm on the book tour, I'll speak with people there to try and set that up. Just staying busy with those 2 things, and rest the first 3 things that I have a whole laundry list. Trust me, of things. Those are the main 3.
Wow, yeah, seems like you are very busy with a lot of very interesting projects. I just pinned again to the top of the spaces the Yzer app, so everybody can go and check it out. I've actually tried it. It's very interesting. It reminds me almost like an app, almost like Duolingo on
Yeah,
those kinds of apps, which
like the
are great.
Duolingo of Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah. It's great because they are designed like once you start learning, you you start getting this streak
Mhm,
and you want to continue the streak. So it's like gamified in a way that makes you want to keep learning. So
mhm,
that I think that's great, especially for people that are starting out on their journeys.
mhm.
And what better way to start caring about Bitcoin than if you start earning some Bitcoin, right? I think that's,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
that's for most of us.
yeah, and I honestly think when people talk about the quote unquote killer app of Bitcoin, I think education is number 1 right now because I've never really met anybody that has studied Bitcoin and not came away either, buying it or becoming a big fan of it or becoming part of the industry. So education is key. And if we can do it in a way where you can earn, nothing's better than earning money and learning at the same time. And this is, in my opinion, the best app I've seen do it. And that's why I'm so adamant about the advising. And shout out to the team as well. Very hardworking team and Bitcoiners as well who have a lot of knowledge about the industry. So I think this is what actually drives adoption a lot quicker because in person is great. I've done a lot of in person. Being able to teach online is cool, but when you talk about a huge mass scale up, you're gonna need something like Wiser, and I believe it's doing a great job right now.
All right, perfect. We have a speaker, Manta Green Capital. Do you want to ask a question to Saya? Mansa, do you have access to the mic? I can hear you. Okay, maybe
Looks
try,
like Mazda fell asleep.
yeah, maybe try reconnecting back if you want. Otherwise, we're going to have to move on, unfortunately. So, Isaiah, I wanted to ask because you were when you were talking about your book, you were saying that you were going to going a lot more international for your second book tour,
Mhm.
which personally I think that's great because, like we said, as much as people in the US can benefit from Bitcoin, I think like especially in emerging markets, the opportunity there is very big. So there is clearly something about your book that not only has spoken to Americans, but also to a larger, more global audience. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. Like, what is it about your book that is transcending these barriers?
Mhm. I think some of the solutions that I came up with in the first book and have in the second book, even though they're pretty unique to the Black American community, if you look at the group of people that you're around, like I said before, either your religion or your race or however, whatever your tribe is, if you have a certain business or if you are involved in different clubs and groups, any group of people that you have, those solutions can work for you as well. So it doesn't matter what country, it doesn't really matter what group. It just shows that if you have certain things that are unique to your group, Bitcoin can usually solve it. And I'm not saying this is end all be all of everything, but if your foundation is good, if the money system is working properly, if you actually have sovereignty, if you can be self sufficient, all of those things allow groups to be flexible and do the things that they want to do for themselves because Bitcoin's for everybody. So what that means basically is it's for even your enemies. Believe somebody's quoted that before. It's like it's for even people you don't like gonna have Bitcoin. It doesn't matter, but people that you do, or people, allies that you do have, country wise, whatever, you have these people working on the same goals. I think it resonates in different countries. I will say the second biggest purchaser of the book had been in Japan, which was surprising to me. And the community out there, shout out to them, looking to come there next month. Community there and other Central American and Caribbean countries that have taken it upon themselves to read it. I think they're just using some of the principles for their own groups. What issues do you face? Remittance problems? Do you have some historical things that may have held back certain groups? Are you tired of inflation? Are you tired of your government basically devaluing your dollars? All of these things can be applied. So I think that's why the book resonates so much and hopefully continues to with the second version and the book tour internationally. Looking forward to it. And also the children coming up, they're way more advanced. Let me just put that out there. Like when I talk to kids from around the world and how advanced they're already on it. So that's a big thing as well. So it's not even a big change to them. They grew up in a world where they had digital currency already. They had video games. So focusing on them has helped as well in other countries.
Yes, yes, that's great. I was just listening to an old interview you did with a Bitcoin magazine podcast,
All right.
and in it you were saying that there's now 12-year-old kids that have never lived in a world without Bitcoin.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah, that's something that we don't.
14 now.
Right? Yeah, yeah, more so now.
Yeah. And then that's a high school freshman. So you have high schoolers who haven't lived in a world without Bitcoin. It's crazy, crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. It's people being born before the internet.
Mhm. Right. Mhm.
Yeah. So, what do you think is being the hardest part of Bitcoin adoption and Bitcoin education? As an educator yourself, what do you think is the biggest roadblock for you?
So right now, early on, it was just ignorance. People just did not know about Bitcoin, or the media did a great job of marketing it as for drug dealers and scammers and scary. Don't use it. You're going to lose your money and people get hacked. They did a great job with that early on. But we had China. They kept quote unquote banning it. People kept falling for that. How many times did China ban it? Like 12 times. That was that early on. That's what was keeping people out of the industry. But I always say pre 2017 and post 2017 because after the block size wars, after big China stopped banning it, after the huge bull run of 2017, I think that's when it was the first step towards legitimacy. And then from that point up until 2020, the hardest part was okay, Bitcoin, it seems volatile. And it seems like if I put my money in, I may lose it all. That was the next barrier. Bitcoin had to prove itself again, which it did, of course, because it's valued against the US dollar, which it has no bottom. So Bitcoin really has no tops. A lot of the price action, that was the big talk. And then during that time period, 2018, 2019, there was a lot of people in the bear market that left. A lot of people were doubting Bitcoin again. I think if you go to this website, 99bitcoins.com, they have a thousand ways, pick the thousand times Bitcoin has died or something like that. That time period was rough. A lot of people were like, "Oh man, I lost all my money. Bitcoin is fake. It's Ponzi scheme." And then boom, 2020 came around, and then we had another bull run, and then the price talk stopped. That was the second hurdle. It was like, all right, well, forget the price. Bitcoin's here to stay. And then from that point, what we've basically seen now is we're past sort of the kiddie stage of Bitcoin. You now have top investors, Stanley Drunken, some of the top VCs. You got BlackRock now speaking about it. It's become a legitimate. So we're now at the point of first they laugh at you and then they fight you stage. We're at the fight you stage pretty much. And we're starting to see governments try to put in types of things to hold back Bitcoin or to demonize it. And I do want to make the distinction: Bitcoin and crypto industry is different. Some of the things are more crypto focused, but there are still a lot of barriers they're trying to keep around Bitcoin, especially that pesky little spot ETF. That should have been here years ago, honestly. But things like that, we're moving up to where people are making it legitimate. And going forward, I think education is the number one thing going for most people that they need in order to understand Bitcoin and to move forward. So those have been the barriers so far, and I think the next big hurdle will be institutional. I think there'll be some sort of institutional or black swan event that crashes the economy. And then once Bitcoin proves itself there, I think it's off to the races. I think at that point, there'll be no more doubt. And Bitcoin will just do what it does, what it's always done. Bitcoin is like honey badger, as we always say.
Yes. Interesting. It always seems that whenever there is some sort of crisis, or like you said, a black swan, um, that's when people actually see the value
Right.
in
Mhm.
in Bitcoin.
I
So
know
it's
it's humans for you. Something has to go wrong before anybody gives a shit.
yeah, yeah. It's like as soon as the boat has a hole, then the safe boats they become much more valuable.
Mhm.
Okay,
Oh,
Ma- we have Mansa again. Let's see if this time he can ask the question. Mansa, can you hear us? Okay. I don't think Twitter or X is working for you, my friend. I'm sorry. Um. Okay, we were just talking about um, the things, the roadblocks for
right.
Bitcoin educators. Yeah. How are you seeing all this institutional thing that is happening with the ETF? Do you have any further thoughts? That seems to be like a very prominent topic at the moment.
Yeah. Let me first state we don't need. I wish some people change their verbiage around it. Bitcoin is fine with the ETF, with futures, without futures. That doesn't. It works regardless. We don't need it. However, with something that's valuable, inevitably, people who have money, the transfer of wealth into things that are actually more valuable is inevitable throughout history. The best money always wins out. The hardest asset is always going to outdo the other assets that leak. So this was inevitable. This was going to come because the people who control our financial system that have a lot of the printed dollars, they're going to basically have risk off assets where they can still make money because unfortunately they were ahead of the game where they have trillions compared to regular plebs like ourselves. But this was coming anyway. So I understand it's coming. But remember, we don't need an ETF. You can just leave it. I would just rather them leave us alone, but it's inevitable. But once it comes, one thing people have to understand about futures, about ETFs, about all these products that are surrounding Bitcoin, um, I think what they're going to try to do is artificially inflate the supply of Bitcoin with paper Bitcoin. Basically, on paper, this is an old trick. So if you don't know this, I'll explain it to people who don't know this.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
They did it with gold market. They did it with the silver market. These are hard assets that you pull out of the ground, but somehow they have more on paper than there's actually in the world with gold and silver. They can manipulate the prices. We call it the tail wagging the dog. And they did it with futures already with these futures products. That's why they get through so easily with Bitcoin because you can control the price until you can't, and then you get back in control basically by introducing new products. With some of these companies that are doing it, I think they may try to do this with extra. This is one of the ways people have said they may try to control Bitcoin. I don't think it's possible because again, it's the only provably scarce asset in history. Everything else, we find new gold all the time, new silver deposits. There's we find new. There's always more supply. Of course, we print money like it's going out of style because it's provably scarce. I think Bitcoin will still overcome it. But I think with the ETF talk, people have to understand the risk as well as understand too that when it's good for the goose, is good for the gander. If they can push Bitcoin's price to half a million or whatever, and they own a lot of it, which I think these companies have been accumulating over the last few years, they'll do that as well. So just knowing both sides of it can help you can help you in this industry relax. But like I always say, man, just buy Bitcoin and take a nap, stack sats, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. It's not that serious. Don't think that the ETF is the be all end all of this industry.
That was great. Yes, I do feel like sometimes when one narrative becomes prominent, it's like everything becomes around that,
Yeah.
and it's good to remember that. We don't need the ETF for Bitcoin to do what it will do, irrespective.
Exactly. And I do want to throw one more reminder in there. It's a
uh,
lot hard. Like for instance, somebody who says Bitcoin goes to $1 million in fiat. That is pretty much a 30x from this point. Going from zero to $30,000 for a Bitcoin was way harder than going from 30,000 to a million. Extremely harder. And we did it without an ETF. So that's what I want people to remember, is that this industry was built on people with innovation, with people being able to develop and come up with code and come up with businesses and use cases and circular economies. We built this. And I think sometimes people get caught up in the big names and the people who are on TV who discuss it, but we are the ones who actually push Bitcoin to this point.
Yes, perfectly said. We have James here with a question or a comment. James, you have the mic.
Yeah, money on chain. I just happened to come across you guys like first time today, and you guys are talking about stablecoin, and I've been very much interested in seeing the stablecoin backed on Bitcoin. But that's for another day. I'll just get to deep down and see what you guys got. So, Isaiah, I greet you. Good evening from Nigeria, and trust you're doing well, man. I love asking these questions to what I feel like call Bitcoin elite. As much as everybody have their opinion about ETFs, your opinion is very succinct. But either ways, we know we can't stop. That's the beauty about Bitcoin. We can't stop anybody from doing whatever they want to do on Bitcoin. And that's the beauty about it. They can go ahead and do whatever they want to do. The truth is that we as educators, been in the educative space for quite a while, we as educators, we just have to keep sending the right messages down. And I believe that the most people, or the people with the most right messages when it comes to Bitcoin, are the people that will survive and whatever onslaught that big corporations tend to bring on one of the most, what I consider the most perfect money out there. So my question is this, Isaiah, in the Bitcoin economy, we have what we call the global south and the global north. We've seen a lot of appetite in the global north when it comes to Bitcoin. Government wanting to tax Bitcoin, wanting to do this, wanting to censor, wanting to get control. We have seen a bit of that in the global south, although we know that most of the global south tend to copy the global north style and all of that, particularly Nigeria and some other African countries and global south in general, South American countries and some Asian countries too. Now the question is this: which of the life's economic bloc do you think would bring us closer to hyper Bitcoinization? Because to be very frank, I see a lot of untold underground stories of Bitcoin education going on in the rural parts of Africa. When I told these guys are just particular about telling people, some of them are not even really particular. I know a couple of guys that I met them on Twitter and other spaces, but they're not even particular about putting out their stuff online. And they just go about doing their work on the ground. And most times I get to tell them, like, look, when you bring your work up, it encourages people and it also gives you traction and it can get closer to hyper Bitcoinization. Which of them do you think will embrace this idea? Personally, I believe that I need to speak, but so I would just love to listen.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You cut out a bit there, but it sounds like you said which economic bloc will push hyper Bitcoinization. And you are right. I think the continent of Africa is already first. The country of Nigeria is, I believe, number 1 or 2 in transactions, Bitcoin transactions overall. Not only that, shout out to my Nigerian brothers. who I'm friends with that live over there in different parts that pushed back against the CBDC that they introduced, the Yzer that almost the entire country was like, no, we don't want that. So I think that in places in Africa, any place where the government has had total control of the currency, where you've had rampant colonialism, where your freedom has been imposed upon, Bitcoin will be pushed there most likely. So yeah, a part of the book tour is Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Kenya, Zimbabwe, looking at Botswana with my friend Ala Kalani, because on the continent, I believe there's so much potential that's untapped. And I've seen so much innovation that has happened without some of the luxuries that we've seen in other countries. Most of the people I work with are like, man, my friends who are on the continent are all in on Bitcoin. They just don't have the media basically pushing it out there. So yes, I think it's very important. I think they'll be at the top or definitely near the top. However, of course, in South America as well, I've seen a lot of adoption there. Some of the same issues that people on the African continent have. Anything with remittances, with circular economies, because if Bitcoin's volatility is less than your local currency, anywhere that happens, Bitcoin's going to take off. And it's just a matter of time. It's already at a sort of a boiling point. We've seen El Salvador with their Bitcoin adoption, with my mentor, Max Kaiser, being down there helping push with volcano bonds and having the Chivo wallet and circular economies and Bitcoin Beach. I believe that'll spread very quickly. And we're almost at a tipping point. And also, people forget Central African Republic actually made Bitcoin an official currency as well. Definitely, I think the continent is ahead of others as far as adoption, and we'll pick it up very quickly.
Yes, thank you, James, for that great question. Is there any other question or comment that you have for the spaces?
Yeah, that's solely Isaiah. It's actually solely, but well, actually, I get so excited actually when I see lots of Bitcoin solutions coming in from Africa, because while the adoption is growing, adoption messages are being preached. At the end of the day, you notice that you observe that only Africans that can build for Africa. Because when I say Africa, the global south also, which includes the poor countries and all of that, countries that the currencies are doing terribly. You are the only person that can understand the concept of the problem, the challenges we're facing. It's only Nigeria with the build products that can face the current needs in Nigeria. So what are the current needs? You have students that want to go out of the country, and Bitcoin is the only solution to get them ethics and all of that. Inflation is coming in, hitting, knocking at everyone's door, and only Africans that can build for Africa. So the adoption message is it's very necessary. And I, for one, I want to actually see more the next generation. I want to see the next generation and the generation after that, because I believe it's easier. The kids, children, it's easier or instill them when they are young, and they grow into understanding Bitcoin, and they grow into building more product and understanding how the Bitcoin protocol and ecosystem works without having to, it's easier to actually teach a kid and all of that. So yeah, all being said, thank you very much, Isaiah. Thank you very much, Money on Chain, for leaving space. Actually, thank you. Much grateful. So, actually, I don't know if you could also share some documentations on your stable coin and backed on Bitcoin, so we could actually understand, because it will actually give a perfect use case for businesses that want to use Bitcoin and still use their stable coin and still be on the Bitcoin standard. Thank you very much, man.
Yes, I will make that documentation available. But yeah, what Money on Chain is doing is backing a stablecoin with Bitcoin. And in that way, for people that want to protect themselves from the volatility of Bitcoin while still keeping all the Bitcoin characteristics of being decentralized, of self-custodying your funds and all of that stuff. And if you think about other stablecoins, like for example, Tether or USDC, you have to trust that they keep their funds in the traditional banking system. So you're not really protected from anything that's happening over there. But if all the collateral is Bitcoin and you can check it in the blockchain in 1 second, you can audit the entire system and make sure that there's enough funds at all times to cover for all the stablecoins that are being issued. That is the reason why I am very happy to be involved with this project, and I believe we're doing something, but that could be a really great use cases for people that need it, but also in a way that is driving demand for Bitcoin. And everything that you do on the money on chain application, because we build on a Bitcoin layer 2 called Rootstop, all the fees, you need to pay them in Bitcoin, and they get paid to the Bitcoin miners. So we are an extra source of revenue for all Bitcoin miners. But yeah, I'll make sure that this documentation is very easily accessible for everyone. If you click on the money on chain account, you can go to the website and it's all there, very explained. So thank you for your comments, James. And anyone from the audience, if you have questions, again, type it in or request the mic. And it's always best when the audience gets involved. Isaiah, do you have any comments on the last comments that James made?
Yeah, so let me also throw in there as far as his comments about the education needed and some of the adoption that's going to happen in Africa. I think people need to understand that the way that the financial system is set up on the continent with the African Union and with some of these dictators that run these countries is actually a perfect time for Bitcoin to take hold while you have a lot of these leaders of countries pushing back against the long-time colonialism that's happened, because they can push back with their military or with protests, but the best form of protest is Bitcoin. The best form of protest is with your money. So I think that people need to understand that all of these things are happening at the same time. It's coming together to a head, and the solution is sitting right there for them. Once they realize they have a way out of this where they may or may not have to do anything with the military, I think they'll realize, hey, we can just use different money. We don't have to, the taxation and some of the inflation that has happened to these countries, they're just holding them at gunpoint. Basically, all these countries, they say, hey, either take our money. We see the IMF, we see the World Bank, they give these loans that they can't pay back. If you're a leader who wants to make your country separate from the tyranny of these banking systems, unfortunately, they get killed. And then they implement a leader that will give the dues and taxes to places like France and others that have had them as colonies for years. It's ridiculous. So I believe that when people are fed up and they have a solution, it's only a matter of time. I'm thinking really in the next 7-8 years, we'll see a huge change in the way people at least want to use their own money, but the change itself definitely in the next decade.
Yeah. No, in the topic of colonization, I really like the work Alex Gladstein has been doing in detailing how, even though we're moving away from the traditional practices of colonization, which was like through war or like aggression, but the dollar has been used as a tool for colonization. And if you look at it, especially once you start going into like the World Bank and the IMF and what their policies have created, and you can see that throughout time, there's been a constant extraction from the global south, extraction of resources and time and energy into places like the US, like Europe, even here, like in Australia. And Bitcoin now appears as an interesting alternative to this system, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Even if Bitcoin wasn't around, bricks came out of nowhere. They're just tired of dealing with the same people in control of the money. So even if it wasn't us trying to recommend Bitcoin, people are just tired of basically being controlled in a world where we should have such top level innovation that's not held back by these financial issues. It's ridiculous. So I think the word is getting out now. The internet, decentralized communication, and now Bitcoin is decentralizing our money. It's time for people to be able to basically raise themselves up a level without a couple. I would say maybe a couple thousand people running the entire world, which is ridiculous.
Yes, 100%. In that way, you'll be having a more decentralized structure and a more decentralized control of power, let's just say, would definitely benefit everyone, especially like I talking from my own perspective as someone that was born in Argentina and seeing how not too long ago Argentina had to borrow an insane amount of money just to pay the interest on a previous debt. You can see that the system as it's set up, it just can't continue. I cannot see. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. My friend, he's not as well versed in economics, but even people like him, I've never even heard him say the word inflation before until like the last month. So even people that aren't even focused on the financial industry understand there's a problem. They may not be able to articulate it, but they know something is wrong when they go to the bank and they can't take out cash, or when they have restrictions on being able to send money, or the fact that prices have doubled for groceries, and people are starting to see increases in mortgages and rent, and quality is getting worse, and prices are going up. That's the red flags are starting to go up. So I think we're sitting here waiting for people to understand that Bitcoin is a solution that they're looking for.
Absolutely. I see, James, you have your hand up. Is there something you would like to add?
Yeah, I'd love to say that basically, I think one of the basic or the very, very, how do I really, what's the word for it? One of the great issues we have in down south, the global south, when it comes to running the economy and all of that is that as a politician, I have witnessed, but one, I ran the campaign to give out the Bitcoin standard book to about four of my political, how they call this again, office holders in my constituency, my house of assembly, that's my local constituency, the state, the governor, the NATO for my constituency, and the House of Rep national of my constituency. And trust me, the engagement you get from these guys are quite very, and it just boils down to, because at least I have gotten insider information on how a lot of these government policies work, getting credit from the IMF, how loan itself. It's surprising to know that there are kickbacks to those loans. The fact that the country is getting loans from the IMF alone, there are people that want to go all out just to get that loans, not minding how the loans will affect our economy, not minding the repercussions and getting, not minding and all of that, because they know they will have possibly kickbacks, possibly access to some fraudulent one of and all of that. So I'm trying almost to go very effective, but for me, I think one of the basic problems of had down south is greed. If and that is why some of these politicians have refused to accept Bitcoin because, Bitcoin checkmate that greed, or a protocol where everything you do can be seen. And if need and all of that. So they actually try to against Bitcoin, against, but they know that they need a solution, to their financial woes. But Bitcoin to them is it's the fullest and down approach in getting that solution, and a lot of them have skeletons in their cupboard that they wouldn't want to get loose. But Bitcoin is still the easiest way to run a society if we can look out for solutions that are budget Bitcoin. When I ran campaigns early this year for election, I was the only politician in Nigeria, in by state in particular in the country at large. So use Bitcoin. My manifesto was built on Bitcoin, and I tried to provide solutions to our immediate problem, our governance on Bitcoin, using the Bitcoin technology and all of that. And trust me, these guys were like, "What are you saying? What are you trying to do?" and all of that. It was sounding like fairy tales, but I intend to keep hitting and keep hitting. We'll be back in 4 years. I hope we bigger. But if the global south and the leaders of the global south, in whatever sphere, whether it's government, governance, and government rather, whether it is in the private sector, wherever, can tone down on their greed, they would see the salvation in Bitcoin itself. That's my take. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think they don't have a choice. So they'll definitely understand you. They're just a little late. So yeah, you're definitely early to the party. But like everybody else, they get Bitcoin when they deserve it.
Yeah, I think that that is something that is hard for us because we want to help people understand Bitcoin as fast as possible. But at the end of the day, it's just like Isaiah said, you will get Bitcoin at the time that is right for you. And as it's always said, you get the price that you deserve, for better and for worse. And there is not much we can do against that. So we are coming to the 1 hour mark, and I want to be conscious of your time, Isaiah. I know you are very busy, and I am very grateful that you came to these spaces with us. And before we close, I want to ask you the question that we ask all our guests at the end of our conversation, which is, if you were to meet Satoshi today, what would you ask him?
I would ask him his private keys so I could give everybody free satoshis in all these in all these different countries, and we could basically overthrow the Federal Reserve overnight.
Love it. That was my answer to when I did the question on the first episode. So we're aligned.
I will say, if that ever was a real question, I would also want to ask if you could ever speak to Satoshi. Were they created by a government agency?
Interesting. You think there might be something there?
Maybe the technology side of it, because we already know that the algorithm has come from where it's come from. But just if they are, or were they just like a dude? Well, that's one thing, because Bitcoin is such a great invention. It's like, was it a group of people? Was it one person? Or was it just like a guy who was on the cyberpunk mailing list and was like super, extremely smart? That's what I asked. Like, or was there some like government involvement, something like that? Because it's such an amazing invention. I would love to know.
Yes, definitely. Like the whole story surrounding Satoshi for an invention as groundbreaking as it is Bitcoin, it just makes it very interesting as a story. But the wild part is that the story is real, and we don't know who Satoshi is, and we will probably never find out. Which is why.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Okay, this will be the last time for the audience to present a question. If not, Isaiah, I just want to give you some minutes. If you have something that you would like to leave the audience with, and if you want to direct them somewhere, now will be the best time.
Okay. I do want to say, I think it was one question that was asked here. Are there common misconceptions or myths about Bitcoin that you aim to address in your educational efforts? From Ms. Jess Real. I'll answer that really quick. Like I was stating earlier, there's a lot of misconceptions that Bitcoin is, before it was for scammers or drug dealers and that shadowy coders and all of that. but that Bitcoin itself is, they think of it as a lot of people think of it like the lottery or like an investment, and that's it. Like they stop right there. They don't really understand that Bitcoin is its own payment network, its own software, its own money system, and that the decentralization that happens is purely organic. Like people don't understand that part of it. They just think it's an investment. I put some money in, I take it out. They think fiat is what their goal should be. So it is a very common misconception, but that's why apps like Yzer, which is Bitcoin and financial education, and my book tour and books and different podcasts that I do, that's why we do it, to educate people so they understand what Bitcoin really is, how it's really used, and how they can benefit in the future. And as far as different things that you can check out for anybody that's listening, I appreciate everybody that listened today. You can check out up top where it talks about the Bitcoin and Black America book tour on Yzer, still raising funds for that. And again, that'll culminate with the Bitcoin Summer Camp. And also make sure anybody listening, go ahead and download the Yzer app. It's free. You earn 50 sats just for signing up. And again, if you have family members and you don't want to send them a bunch of podcasts and links and books, because I have plenty of family members and friends, a lot of them are not going to read that much or take any action. Just send them the app. Just tell them download it, check it out. It's a pretty fun experience. It's gamified. It's pretty easy, and it's for pretty much all ages. So definitely check that out. And if anybody wants to contact me, let me know.
All right. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you once again, Isaiah. This has been a great space. I personally have learned a lot. I've been taking a lot of notes while you were speaking. And I always learn something when I host these spaces. So I think we are doing something right. I want to also
Absolutely.
invite, yes, I want to thank the audience for being a part of it and for supporting us on every session. I want to let everyone know that this week is going to be a different week because we're going to have two spaces. So we just had this one with Isaiah, and on Thursday, we're going to have Paul Stork, the CEO of Layer 2 Labs, and we're going to talk about drive chains, which I think that's going to be another interesting topic. And you're all welcome and invited to join and participate. So with that said, Isaiah, thank you again. The best of luck with your second book tour with Yzer. That I've been trying the app and I recommend it to everyone. And yeah, let us know what we can do to help you. And if you want to later down the road, if you have something else to announce, let us know and we will be happy to have you again. James, I see you have your hands up, so I'll give you the mic before we say goodbye.
Sorry, Isaiah,
Yeah.
you're coming on the book tour to, I think I skipped that part where you said you're coming on the book tour to, are you coming to Nigeria?
Yes, planning to come to Lagos, planning to come to Accra, Ghana, and South Africa, as well as Botswana and Zimbabwe.
Whoa, that would be great. What's the timeline?
It'll be between November and February is the tour. The actual date, I'm trying to pinpoint it down, and I'll post all of that whenever we get the exact date. I got you. Yeah.
Whoa. If you could make it to Calabar, Nigeria by December, I'll be glad to host you
I am.
in Africa's biggest street party, Calabar Carnival.
Okay, beautiful. All right, I'll take care of that offer. Let me, DM me and we'll discuss it, brother.
All right, bro. Cheers.
All right.
And thank you guys for the invite.
Yes, love to see the connection happening live. So thank you all. See you in the next one. And we will release this as a podcast for those of you who can't be here live. Thank you again and see you this Thursday. Bye, everyone.